case you missed it, my name's Leo Yip. I like to put a picture of myself up there when I'm introducing myself when I talk. Oh, I need to get a camera shot. Cool. So I am a director and owner of a design studio called Hell of a Studios. I'm also a owner and director of a company called Ellerspeed, where we essentially build custom motorbikes. I'm also a co-founder of Auxiliary Design School, which is an independent design school. And I guess for me today, I was going to go through and talk about my journey up until now, how it relates to the broader theme of broken. I'm probably not really going to get into how, as designers, we can fix, major social problems and all that sort of stuff. I'm probably going to take it from the point of view of, I guess, how one person can affect their own situation so that therefore it can hopefully affect other people as well. So I was born in 1984 in Adelaide. It's not a picture of me. That's Run DMC for anyone who doesn't know. And if you don't, then you should have a good look at yourself in the mirror. This is a picture of me. I'm the child, by the way. I'm not the lady. That's my mum. So yeah, I was born in Adelaide. That's a picture of me. I think I'm like 2 there. I guess probably like most of you, I grew up like playing Lego. I don't know, playing with cardboard, cutting it up, like making things out of it, and painting and all that sort of thing. Probably one of my favorite things to do, actually, as a kid was, I don't know if you guys ever had classes where you would go in and pour like plaster of Paris into molds, and you'd make like dinosaur molds, and then you'd paint them and get like Mickey Mouse ones and stuff like that. That was dope. That was like the best thing ever. Anyways, we moved up to Brisbane in 1997. And that was cool. It was different. I mean, Adelaide was like a real small town. Everyone was really nice. Like, it'd be the type of place where, I don't know, a bus driver would hop off the bus, walk across the road, help an old lady across the road to get on the bus. Moving up to Brisbane, that was like a bit different. I guess you'd come here and it's like, oh, it's a bigger city and people don't sort of say hi to you and stuff. But, hey, that was fine. Got used to it after a while. So yeah, moved here, went to high school, and somewhere along the line, I guess, for me, I got it into my head in high school. And it was, no doing from my parents or anything like that. It was, I don't know, just other people, that, you would never make a career as being creative. And so, as a good Asian, you should really become a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant. So, I went with that cliche, and I guess studied in high school, I guess, all sciences. I did maths. I was a huge nerd. And, that was fine for me. And then by the time I got to university, I guess, I quickly realized that med science really wasn't for me. I did it for a year, and I was like, every day I was like, man, this just sucks, like so bad. And I remember watching a TV show one day after uni, and it was about who I guess everyone in the industry, they call them the 2 dicks, Richard Seymour and Dick Powell, and they're like the godfathers of design, of industrial design at least. And yeah, basically I watched this TV show and I was like, what is this? These guys are like, drawing and they're like making stuff, and then they're like getting paid like shit tons of money for it. And I'm like, I totally want to do all of that stuff. So I was like, wow, so here are these people actually making career. It's the first time I've ever been exposed to anything like this. So I went straight back into uni the next day, and I went to go see like the careers advisor person who you speak to about changing courses and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, so I want to know about this thing called industrial design. And she's like, what? And she's like, you mean graphic design? I'm like, no. I'm pretty sure it was called industrial design. They like make things like chairs and tables and stuff. And she's like, you sure it's like not architecture? And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure they said on the TV show it was industrial design. And so, I guess back then it was, now it's probably a bit more prevalent as a subject. But yeah, and so she was like, oh, I don't know. And so she's like typed it into like this, like old ass computer, and she's like just basically like, oh yeah, actually yeah, there is something, and we actually do it here at QUT. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And so basically, I quit my degree and then skipped over. And I'm pretty sure that was at the point where, it broke my mum's heart just a little bit, because at that point in time, I'm sure she was like, yeah, my son's going to be a doctor. No, my parents have always been good supporters, but I'm sure a little piece of her was just like, oh. I guess for my parents, they just wanted to know whether or not I was going to starve. So I guess that leads us into the theme of broken. And that was my segue. That was the best segue that I could come up with. So please applaud that, not you. I guess like Jacinta said, when people look at the word or think of the word broken, I mean, even when I was given the topic, my initial thought was like, oh man, how am I going to talk about my leg for an hour? Or, how am I going to talk about something negative for an hour? It's just not really, it's not in my nature. Like, I don't really prefer to delve on things like, oh, this is really bad. Hey, yeah, it's really bad, and just keep talking about how bad it is. I guess I like to kind of see it as less something that's damaged and in pieces and sort of fractal, but the second definition of broken, which is just something that's not working properly, which I think is a much nicer way of saying something's just not that great, because it means that there's like at least a door that's been left open for you to fix that issue. So, for me, it's all about, something not working properly. And to be honest, I'm probably talking to the wrong crowd here, because I would say that, for most creatives, most of you probably see the world in exactly the same light. You see the word broken as something relatively positive. It's an opportunity, basically. It's an opportunity to make things better. I'm gonna have a drink. I guess as an industrial designer, we predominantly focus on physical things, so physical products and how physical products can change people's lives for the better. These are just some that I put up there. Some of them are iconic, some of them are cliche choices. But, like the Dyson vacuum cleaner, for example. Dyson spent years, like trying to push this vacuum cleaner out on the market, because it was like, look, traditional vacuum cleaners just do not solve the problem correctly. They just don't work properly. Here, I have a solution for you that works way better. It's got way more suction. It looks kind of space age. There's all sorts of benefits to this one product, but a lot of people just wouldn't let him into the market. For me, as a kid growing up in the 90s, and I guess you guys probably would have experienced the same thing, it's this whole idea of like this no rules generation. So for me, that kind of like fed into a lot of what I expected my life would be when I was older. I definitely thought I was going to be Tupac, and then he died, and then I was like, shit, I'm not going to be him. Plus, I'm not black, I'm not a rapper. But anyways, I used to love like this whole idea of, doing something that challenges the status quo, and this idea that it's kind of like you can be successful in that. I mean, Happy Gilmore, that's just such the best movie. But no, like The Goonies, for example. I used to think that The Goonies was the best movie of all time, and mainly because of this guy, Data. He was, and I was exactly the same as this kid. I used to make stuff. I used to make cardboard, guns, and hang out with my mates, and it was awesome. And for me, I actually resonated a lot with that, and especially, I guess, for the fact that there was this like Asian kid as a main character. Like that just used to I was like, oh my gosh, and it didn't hurt either that he was also short round in Indiana Jones. That was just dope. So I guess as I moved into industrial design at university, I kind of had this notion of, this is great, because I'm going to get to sketch all the time. I'm just going to play with toys, make cool stuff, and then change the world. Like, they were the things that was going to happen. Turned out I was really just looking at a computer, punching in CAD, and then sending out emails and looking at Excel spreadsheets. But I love these sorts of things. I think they're kind of hilarious. But the old place that I used to work at, we had a client one time come in and just say, hey, look, can't you guys just do that on the computer? I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, oh, well, just go to the computer and tell the computer to go design it. I'm like, what? I'm like, I think you're in the wrong place, man. Like, that's not how it works. Like, the computer doesn't do it. Like, you tell the computer what to do. It's like, oh, I thought you guys just like, type in your parameters and what you want, and the computer generates a thing for you. And we're like, wow, that's like, 2,000, freaking years in the future. That's dope. But, I guess they don't understand the pain and the angst that sort of go behind all of that. And for me, I think I probably got my first job outside of uni way too early. I was probably way too immature. And I entered the workforce really because some other people, saw something in me and they offered me a job, and that was great. But I think very soon into it, I realized that it wasn't working for me. So I guess essentially my career path was a little broken. I was sitting there behind a computer, quite long hours, as most of you guys would know, as being creatives. You sort of need to spend a lot of time doing stuff. And I guess I was looking at the inside of a cubicle. It was a very colourful cubicle, very cool. I used to love the people that I worked with. I really liked my boss. So there's nothing wrong with that on that front. But I guess I was kind of like, so I've done all of this stuff for I've done 12 years of high school. Then I've done essentially at that time I did 5 years of uni. And then now I'm here. I've landed. I've completely made it. And it's like, hang on a second, this is not what it's cut out to be. So I kind of just, I guess that, sort of whole idea of this no rules generation and this sort of 90s rebellion kid sort of came back out. And it was this idea of I guess, fuck you to the man. It was really sort of I don't want to do this. I don't want to go do the typical thing, I don't know, get a wife, which I have now, but that's not a typical thing. That's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. But go get a wife, have a get a house, have a car and have kids, and next minute I'm dead. It's just it kind of just feels this is my life. So I was like, oh, hang on a second. I'm at this opportunity in my life where I can actually go explore a few different options. So I basically decided to leave my job. And the very first thing I decided to start was Hell of a Studios. So I started that with my business partner, Steve. And that was great. And our whole idea with Hell of a Studios was to not have a single client. And I know that sounds really weird, but we essentially wanted to be our own clients. So we wanted to create our own products, design our own products, take them right through to market, and then sell them. And this is just before Kickstarter. So this is probably a year before Kickstarter really sort of started to take off. So, for us, that wasn't really an option to begin with. So I remember the very first product Steve and I designed. It was a really shitty product. It was this tiny little registration label holder for motorbikes. But we saw an issue. They kept breaking. And so we're like, man, we can design something way better than this. And so essentially, we made them. We both dumped in a bunch of cash. And we're like, we're never going to see that money ever again. So we sold 5,000 units of them, though. So we got all our money back, plus we made money. And we're like, yeah, nope. And winning. Anyways. And then we ended up selling that entire business on to another company who ended up, I guess, buying another 5,000 units. And off the back of that, we designed them a whole bunch of other products. And then, I guess all in the meanwhile, we were kind of mucking around with motorbikes and doing all sorts of bits and pieces. For us, that's kind of a good model where we design our own products, take them through to market, and then sell them. We've kind of built up a bit of a team, so that's obviously me again in the middle. Steve's to my right. And then Ewan, he's here today. We've got Andrew and Cam and Phil help us with the motorbike side of things. We do, I guess, do some consulting work, but we're very, I guess, selective. It really has to sort of pique our interest. And it has to fulfill a criteria for us where it's either in sort of three major categories. First category is that it has to be a sustainable-based product. So we're working with the Macau government at the moment on I guess, quite a large infrastructural change of how they deal with, I guess, a lot of their pollution and all that sort of stuff. For any of you, obviously, anyone who's traveled to Hong Kong, China, Macau, it's like breathing an exhaust pipe daily. So, obviously those guys are facing, massive problems. We have a lot of clients as well in the action sports industry. So we do a lot of stuff with the skate, BMX, motorbike type of fields. And that's really just because we all grew up doing that. We all grew up surfing, skating, etc. And we just like that side of things. For us, and for me in particular, if I'm not really interested in the project, I don't give it my all. If I'm interested in the project, I'll be there 120 hours out of a day. Like, I'm more than happy to be there. Otherwise, I feel like it's just kind of like, I'm just doing this to get paid, and it just doesn't really work well for me. And I guess the third category in which we work within is innovation. That's the best innovation photo I could find. So it's from 2001: Space Odyssey, if anyone doesn't know. But no, we work with a lot of clients, I guess, exploiting a piece of technology that they might have, and trying to use it in a different market, and trying to think about different ways to use it. I'll talk about Ellispeed as well. Basically, what we do is we take old bikes, new bikes, we deconstruct them. We do what's called from soup to nuts, which is we'll do everything from the engine all out. Oh,
sorry.
Oh. It's all right, I'll keep talking. We do essentially what's called soup to nuts, which is we'll take a full engine out, break the bike right down to its essential parts, modify it, cut it, put it all back together, redesign it, put it all back together in its new redesigned form, and then essentially put it back together and deliver it for a client. So this is one of our bikes that we did. It's an older BMW. It's an older R80 BMW. It's funny, I say this all the time, that the customers and the clients that we have for the motorbike side of things, it's a very different type of creative experience to, say, if you have a consulting sort of client. Consulting client generally, obviously you'll get good clients who understand that, you need to get paid and you need to be fed. But I think in my previous life, working where I worked, it was sort of about, the bottom dollar. Okay, all right, you're gonna tell me that this is gonna cost 100 grand. It's like, let's do it for 50. And it's like, okay, I can do half the work. No, same amount of work, just do it for 50. This is impossible, you can't do it. Whereas I think for the bike side of things, like, the customers are very different. They're very happy to go on the journey with you, and they can understand a lot of it. To date, we've built just over 500 motorbikes, and they vary in terms of the amount of work that we do to them. But we're getting inquiries from all around the world, and we just do it out of a dirty, dingy shed out in West End. So it's kind of cool. It's very fun, and it's been a really great journey so far. We started in around about 2011. We got smashed by the floods, lost probably about 50 grand's worth of tools, and didn't get any money back on insurance. And so then we had to kind of start all over again, which was kind of fun. But I'll show you a video, and hopefully it works, right, Jacinta? Yeah. I'll show you a quick video. It's a very romantic notion of what I guess our days look like there.
Let the daddy hold you, squeeze you real tight. Don't be afraid, babe. Daddy promise everything will be alright. Gosh, you look so good when you come around. If I could only have you, I swear I'd put all my other friends down. But your lips look good, so tender and fine. If only I could feel your tender lips on mine. Tell me you love me, tell me you care. Without you, baby, your daddy'd be nowhere. Let the daddy hold you, squeeze you real tight. Don't be afraid, baby. Daddy promise everything will be alright.
So I guess kind of like you guys, you'd probably go through a very similar creative process depending on, I guess, what your creative field is. You'd sketch something, ideate it, and then take it through and then actually produce the final result. I'll give you a very, very quick sort of run through as to what we do at Ellerspeed. So we'll take a bike. This is a brand new bike. So we'll get brand new bikes, we'll get old bikes. This particular customer, it wasn't working properly for them. They bought a brand new XT660R, took it out and around, and they were like, look, this is not really going to do 100% of what I actually want it to do. So although it was a brand new bike, they kind of thought it was broken, I guess, to an extent. So what we did is we sat down with them, we talked through sort of what they want, generate a bunch of sketches, and then we'd go back to them with a very loose idea, like of a concept of sort of what is going to work for them. So this particular customer, Rick, wanted to be able to ride it in town, but then also he wanted to do like really long stretches of travel. So essentially from there, we bring the bike in, we break it down, we'll make like we'll bolt a bunch of bits and pieces to it, we'll make cardboard mock-ups, we'll make foam prototypes. I call Steve at work our human CNC machine. For anyone who doesn't know what a CNC machine, essentially it's a big robot. It's quite cool, and it cuts stuff, and it does it to exactly the dimensions in which you put into it. But Steve's amazing. You can kind of draw a sketch and then say, yeah, we kind of want it to look like this, and then you'll come back like in 10, 15 minutes, and it looks like that, and you're like, that's dope. So yeah, we'll make a bunch of bits and pieces, and then we'll go out for a test ride. This particular bike went out for, I guess, a bit longer of a test ride than what we usually do. We had to call our good friend Bruce up and say, hey, Rick missed his delivery date on his delivery pickup, and he needs to be in Adelaide in a week. And we're like, do you mind riding the bike from here to Adelaide? And he's like, yeah, sure, all right, why not? And so he took a week off work and then jumped on this bike. We literally finished it like an hour before he jumped on the bike. He rode down to Adelaide, and a few bits fell off, but that was fine. That was part of the test ride, I guess. And then Rick, the reason why I needed it in Adelaide was that he essentially was crossing the Nullarbor. So he crossed the Nullarbor, and then the bike got shipped all the way back to us for us to finish. And this is the final result of what we ended up building. So it's a custom tank, custom bash plate, the seats custom. We made all the exhausts and all that sort of stuff. We'll do a lot of things like we'll CAD up bits and pieces and have fully CNC'd machined tail tips and integrated indicators and that sort of thing. This is the bike when it's fully loaded up. So it means that he can go sort of cross country without too much drama. He doesn't ride like that in Brisbane. It'd be a bit awkward if he did. But so he just unclips everything and takes it off. I'll give you a very dry, boring, practical example of broken with regards to Ellerspeed. So we buy certain bits and pieces from other manufacturers. This is a very generic pair of clip-on handlebars. So essentially, this is what allows you to steer the motorbike. So quite a critical piece of componentry. We used to buy these in from I guess, a local supplier, but we were noticing that a few of our customers were coming back and they were literally braking. So you can imagine if you're going at about 120 kilometers an hour down the road, having a handlebar brake is not quite a great thing. Luckily for those guys, nothing catastrophic happened. We sent it back to the suppliers and said, hey, look, this is like incredibly dangerous. You guys, need to be doing some testing on this material. In fact, you definitely should not be able to sell it at all. And they're like, oh yeah, we've heard of that happening. And we're like, what? We're like, and you guys didn't let us know this? And they're like, oh, well, it only happens like every now and then. I'm like, it only needs to happen once. Like, what are you talking about? So subsequently, off the back of that, we actually started to produce our own products because we know that we can test them. We know that we can have them engineered. We know that we're probably going to do a better job than whoever made those other set. And so, for us, that was like solving a very, I guess, real-to-world problem that affects us, I guess, on a daily basis. So now, I guess we're starting this year in particular, we've been pushing very hard on producing all of our own parts and supplying them to people all around the world. We also, I guess, noticed a very big gap in the market where general day-to-day people who ride don't necessarily have an outlet just to be hooligans for a day and have a bunch of fun and I guess just be in an environment where they can bring a bike in and race some dude that they've never met before. Of course, you can go on track days and all that sort of stuff, but if you've ever met track races, they're pretty hardcore. Drag races are even crazier. Like, you know, they'll spend like 20 grand just to like get quarter of a second, and that's a lot. So we decided to run this event called Dust Hustle, which is essentially it's a big dirt track and it's a bring it and ring it type event. So we get guys who ride like Harleys, dirt bikes, scooters, and you just race against the person who's next to you. I'll play you another very quick video. So it's a pretty rad day out. It's pretty fun. So you get guys who dress up as like stormtroopers and all that sort of stuff. I guess for me, the third part of the different businesses that I have is teaching in design. Maddie actually summed it up quite well a couple of months ago. You had that Japanese saying that's like, why do you get up in the morning? For me, I would always say that Helliver is for my head, Ella Speed is for my heart, and Auxiliary, which is the design school, is for my soul. I know it's probably a bit deep for 8:40 in the morning, but it's the reason why I get up. It's the reason why I'm here. Usually I don't need to be rolling into work now. So, but Auxiliary Design School, it's an independent design school, and it was founded by good mate Neil, good friend of mine Leon, and Carolyn and myself. We've all taught at university for a number of years now. We've all lectured, unit coordinated, tutored, all sorts of stuff. And I guess we were all having a very similar conversation, because outside of university where we were teaching, we were all practicing. And we were saying, hey, do you guys keep getting like folios across your desk and it's really quite like subpar? It's like, yeah, we do. We start like going around hunting around from like some of the other universities, and you're like, they're all kind of like the same. Like, what's going on? And at that point in time, I was, I guess, lucky enough to be on the inside of one of the universities, and they were rewriting a lot of their curriculum. And I remember making a comment saying, oh, hey, so the focus is jobs, right? Like, kids need to get jobs. And they're like, nope, what are you talking about? Like the focus is, we just need to teach them, but, we don't necessarily guarantee them a job. I'm like, well, you really should be making as much effort as possible to strive towards getting them a job. That's like kind of what we're here for. Like that's what they pay their huge HECS bills for. Like, if this was another business and you're promising a product and someone's paying for it and you're not delivering it, it's kind of like, well, hang on a second, like, you're not really getting what you've paid for. And this week, Tom Tilley and all those guys on Hack and all that sort of stuff have been, I guess, talking about things like this. For us, we saw something that was a relatively broken system, and there's nothing wrong with their system. It's like the system that's currently around. It's obviously it's evolved over time, but for us in particular, for our industry, industrial design is incredibly difficult to teach on a mass level. So having this many people in a room trying to teach them all to become industrial designers would require a lot of people to teach them. It's a very hands-on, one-on-one type situation, almost like a master and apprentice. So for us, we came together to form Auxiliary Design School, and it sort of started out as like a bit of a tutor group. We were like, oh, look, we're just going to take a couple of students, they can pay us for some tuition and we'll help them out. Over some beers, we were just like, no, stuff this, fuck that, we're going to start a school. So we ended up starting the school, and that was good. We essentially, I guess, our whole idea of it was really, I guess, it kept stemming from this idea that I had this in my head that, like, this is from The Simpsons. So if you guys have ever seen this episode of The Simpsons where, like, there's just, like, this escalator and then they just drop them into a hole at the end, I kind of, like, for me, that's kind of how it feels. Like, you go through, like, all of high school, all of university, and then at the end of it, you're like, man, I've just racked up a massive debt, and then they just drop you in a hole. So yeah, I mean, for us, it was kind of like this idea of, okay, we want to change that system. We want to, not just put them on an escalator, but then put them on another escalator, not of debt, but of success. So an escalator of success. I'll play you another video. I like putting videos in because it means I don't have to talk. I didn't make that video, Leon did, so it's a bit. So we started, I guess we came together in 2014, but we launched our very first program in 2015. And our very first program was a program called, I guess, Auxiliary X. So that's one of the programs that we run. We did it in conjunction with a major sponsor, which was Sunbeam, and then a minor sponsor, which was Four Pines / Vostok. The Four Pines bit came just because we liked their ginger beer, and I just hit them up for some sponsorship, and it turned out that through that conversation, they were like, hang on, what do you guys do? And we're like, oh, we're industrial designers. And they're like, so you design products? And we're like, yeah, you guys know what that is. That's awesome. And they're like, look, I think there is a mutually beneficial relationship that can be had from this. And we're like, okay, that sounds cool. You just feed us with beer, we'll do what you want. So they sent a bunch of beer to us, and they said, look, So on a serious note, we've been working on the very first space beer ever. And we're like, oh yeah, cool, all right, you just want to strap a VB can to a rocket and send it up in space. It sounds cool. And they're like, no, we've done like full NASA testing on one of our beers. And we're like, really? And they're like, yeah, it's low fizz, so it doesn't explode, and shards of glass go in an astronaut's eye. And so yeah, it's this stout, which they call their Vostok stout. And they've taken it on several trips in several different vomit comets. So if anyone doesn't know what a vomit comet is, basically it's I think it's a 777 or a 747, and they basically fly it really high up, and they go they go vertical and then come back down, and that creates zero Gs. So you see all these astronauts like floating in space, trying to drink this beer, and then measuring the effects of what that's like. So we were like, this is the coolest thing ever. We are definitely on board. So we took 9 students. We gave them that brief that they had to design a Vostok space beer bottle. Out of the 9, one of them got chosen, which is Angelina's one. Angelina's the one in the glasses. And basically that's actually that's in full development at the moment. So for a student who just graduated, it's pretty cool to be able to put their name to say that I've designed probably what is going to become the very first commercially available beer in space. So the people that they're targeting are obviously, like Virgin Galactica and, space tourists, when that all comes on board, that you can see the moon and drink a beer at the same time. So I guess our major sponsor was Sunbeam. I guess it was fun, but I guess probably a little bit more serious than the beer. But yeah, Sunbeam was great. Basically, they came to us and said, look, we want your students to go in and do some really in-depth research into varying fields and what, say, the kitchens of maybe the future will look like, but pare it back because we do not want these, sort of future ideas that can't exist. They're like, it has to be cemented in reality. And we're like, that's great, because that's exactly what we're trying to teach our students, is that not just coming up with these like wonderful concepts that look really pretty, but they actually have some sort of grounding in reality. So out of the 9 students, 3 students actually had their work taken forward for further commercialization consideration, which for some of those students, they haven't even finished university yet. It's amazing that before they graduate, or not soon after they graduate, there is a high probability that one of their products might actually end up on the shelves, which I think for most designers, for most industrial designers, that doesn't happen until, for you to be able to call an entire product yours, like that doesn't happen for, sort of 2 or 3 years out of your degree. Obviously some people take it further and, develop it further and all that sort of stuff, but it's the essence and the idea and the concept of it. And it was all grounded in reality, in which, some people were like, cool, I can take this, I can actually work with this idea that you've given us. We weren't able to make it to Design Conference. We will be there next year, Maddie, because this year we're actually down at the Good Design Awards. So this happens in conjunction with the Vivid Festival. So out of those 9 students, 2 of them took home Good Design Awards, which is great because it's an international award. It's the first time in like 10 years there's even been a Brisbane finalist. So we walked away with 2 awards, one for innovation and one for sustainability. And Dave, who's peeking his head out the back there, he also won People's Choice. So, for us, we looked at it, took what we thought was a broken model. Some people may disagree, some people may agree. Whatever, I'll fight you in the car park. And we saw an opportunity to make a bit of a change. Subsequently, off the back of the success of the X program, we've also launched what is an Auxiliary 1 program. The whole idea of this is essentially to go into high schools, chat to kids who are planning on doing design, or even just exposing kids to design. For me, I would have loved it if someone came in and told me about design. I wouldn't have wasted a year doing med. That was just terrible. They had good parties though. That was pretty cool. But no, it's great. They can come in for a week, learn about design, and then make up a decision. It's like, oh, well, do I want to be an architect? Do I want to be an industrial designer? Do I want to be a graphic designer? What what do I want to do? So, we'll explain to them how hard it is to be an industrial designer, and if they still love it, then they're like, man, that's totally for me. And, we'll really help them along with that. I guess we also run a plus program, which is pretty much a core tactical and sort of practical skills course. So we do it a lot for people who might be design veterans from other fields, other relating fields, who have either just learnt about industrial design or have always known about it, but are like, cool, I'm at a point in my career where I'm happy to try this out now. Or alternatively, it's also for uni students who kind of want to just build up their skills. A good way to explain it is that it sort of, the program's designed to prepare you to go get a job. So it'll build up your portfolio and all that sort of stuff. Whereas X is actually executing the job, is actually doing the job with all the skills that you've been learnt, or all the skills that you've been taught. So yeah, for me, broken is, the meaning is, something not working properly. And it's about how you can put a really positive spin on it to see an opportunity to make things better. So, I guess that old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't really believe in that. I think if it ain't broke, you can improve on it, because everything can be improved upon. But if it is broken, then you should learn from that and then take it forward, re-innovate it, and then put it back out into the world. And that's me. So.